Bonjour mes amis, bon après-midi, ça va? Le café est encore ouvert. Et ça veut dire salut. As it's a pleasant Sunday afternoon, I thought we'd pop over to Sodom and see what the engine's doing. Do you think? Thomas paused for a moment before continuing. Now, some might think that Thomas was trying to create dramatic effect. Perhaps he was trying to embellish or enhance the question he was about to ask. Perhaps he was trying to indicate to his audience a certain degree of poignancy. Perhaps he was trying to create an atmosphere of suspense, to keep his audience waiting with bated breath, so that, when he finally spoke, they would hang on to his every word. In reality, he'd forgotten what he was about to say. "You've forgotten what you were going to say," said Percy. Thomas ignored him and continued. "Do you think Mr. Rishi has a lot of money?" he asked. "He's very wealthy," said James. "He does have a lot of money," said Henry. "But he has very little value," said Percy, cheekily. Most of the engines laughed, but Keith, who was a great supporter of Mr. Rishi, just humphed and trundled off. Earlier in the day he'd noticed that a couple of trucks had developed a lean to the left, and so went to shunt them out of the yard. "I thought he must be rich," said Thomas. "I mean, those trips in private jets and helicopters must cost him a fortune." Percy was a little exasperated. In a previous story, Percy had explained that the jets and helicopters were paid for by taxes. Thomas was still puzzled. "How can the taxis afford to pay for jets and helicopters?" he asked. "All the taxis do is take people to and from the station." Edward explained. "It's not those taxis," he said. "Taxes are sums of money that the controllers take from people's wages to help run the island. It's the people's money. It goes into something called the public purse." "Ah, so if it's public, that means that people can dip in when they need something," said Thomas. Edward went on. "Well, in theory, it should be used for the public good, paying for things like new hospitals, fixing potholes in the road, paying nurses proper wages and so on. But in practice, a lot of it finds its way into the private pockets of the controllers and their mates." "And to pay for Mr. Rich's jets and helicopters," Percy added. Thomas was appalled, or he would have been appalled, had he known what appalled meant. As it was, he considered being flabbergasted, but then he realised he didn't know what that meant either, and so he settled for being amazed. "So why don't the people do something?" he asked. "They do," replied Edward. "They can't be bothered to dig out their torches and pitchforks, and so they post angry comments on social media." "Does that make a difference?" asked Thomas. "Not in the slightest," said Edward. "Not in the slightest."